Shalom Aleichem for Het ER Mishnah continues in chapter 3 of Sotah, Mishnah Zion. Yesterday we mentioned a mincha, a meal offering of Mrs. Cohen, is entirely burned, meaning they would take out the komets, the scoop, and they would burn that on the mizbeach, but the rest of the mincha, which is normally baked up or fried up and eaten by the Cohanim, is scattered on Beit Hadesh. So Mishnah Zion continues this. Bat Yisrael Shenisa the Cohen, a regular Jewish girl who marries a Mr. Cohen, minchata nisrefet. Like we said, her mincha is burned on Beit Hadesh. And v'kohenet, she was born a Cohen, Shenisa Yisrael, she married Mr. Yisrael, minchata nachelet. There the Cohanim do eat the mincha. Obviously, the kmitza is always burned on the mizbeach, but the shirayim, the other part of the mincha, can be eaten. Ma ben Cohen the Kohenet. So the Mishnah on this theme asks, what's different between Mr. Cohen and Mrs. Cohen, or a girl who was born Mrs. Cohen, Miss Cohen? Minchat Kohenet nechelet. Her mincha is eaten, as we said. Minchat Cohen enu nechelet. The mincha of Mr. Cohen, any meal offering brought by a Mr. Cohen, is never eaten, is burned. Kohenet mithalelet. A Kohenet can become a halalah if she has an intimate relationship with a man who she is not allowed to marry. She can no longer eat truma, which she originally could as a privilege of being a kohenet. Cohen ein mitchalel. A Cohen who marries or is in a relationship with a woman who he's not supposed to marry, well, he can't serve in the temple while they are married. So he loses his privileges during that time, but it's not a permanent loss if he rectifies the situation. Kohenet, a female Cohen, mitame l'meitim, she can go to funerals. Ve'ein Cohen mitame l'meitim, but a Cohen cannot be mitame l'meitim. Of course, there are exceptions for close relatives, as we talked about with the Cohen Gadol and the Nazir walking down the road and finding a meit mitzvah, and of course, meit mitzvah is required and allowed for everyone. Cohen ochel b'kodshe kodshim, a Cohen can eat the holy of holies. And these are items like a hatat and an asham and a mincha. But a female Kohen does not eat from those offerings, though she, of course, eats other things like shlamim, toda, bechor, and korban pesach. So on this theme, the Mishnah continues, ma bein ish leisha, more generally, and this is, of course, not an exclusive list, there are other items, but what are the halachic differentiations between men and women? Ha'ish porea uforim, a man who is a mitzora, he has to let his hair grow out and rip his clothing. Ve'ena isha parat ufremet. And a female mitzora is not required to do so. Interesting, we're in Sfirat HaOmer, when men do not shave and get haircuts, unless, there's certain exceptions, but generally, but women should shave and get haircuts. There's no restriction. Mishnah adds, Ha'ish Moder B'no B'Nazir, as we learned about in Masechet Nazir, chapter 4, Mishnah 6, the man can make his son a Nazir, but of course if the family objected or cut his hair, then that would sort of override the father's educational desires here. Eina isha maderet et b'no b'Nazir. A woman cannot make her children into Nazirim. That was for educational purposes only. The Mishnah adds, Aish megaleach al Nazirut aviv. A man can shave using the offerings of his father, as we explained in Nazir chapter 4 as well. Einisha megalachat al Nazirut avia, but a daughter cannot do so. Ish mocher et bito. A man can, the word sell is used, but basically there's a contractual obligation where his daughter works for another Jewish household. They treat her very well, and they're expected that someone in their family will marry her. And this is only in a situation of very dire financial straits where the father cannot provide for his daughter as he should. But a mother cannot do so to her daughter. And the Mishnah continues, Ish mikodesh et bito, as we've mentioned in Kiddushin and Yevamot, a man can technically, he's not supposed to, the Mishnah says in Kiddushin, he can marry off his minor daughter. And this was, again, only during situations where it'd be very hard to get a shidduch later, like during the Crusades, when the Crusaders might steal everything, or in certain countries where the local men would abuse unmarried women, but would be afraid of married women, even if they were very young, because the family would take revenge. But a mother may not do so. Now, we talked about Kiddushay Miyun, Kiddushay Ketana, where a mother marries off a young girl. It was a rabbinical marriage, and the young girl in question is allowed to walk out. There's a whole chapter in Yevamot about that. Ha'ish niskol arum, a man who is stoned, that's the capital punishment he needed, he is buried without clothing. Enisha niskelet aruma. She is clothed when she is stoned and buried. Ish nitle, a man who is executed by the court needs to be strung up. But not a woman. It's not tznius, even though these people deserved capital punishment. We're still concerned about their dignity. A man may be sold, if sold by the court in this case, to work for another Jew as an Eved Ivri, if he's stolen something and he can't pay back. But a woman who steals is never sold as a shivcha in this situation. Yashar koach, be well.